extra gear, the first 3 steps.
Huge strides in the performance.
That I might not be the player I am today.
Okay, welcome to another episode of Behind the Gear, and today, wow, we got the man, the myth, the legend. We got Kenny Galerno with us, and this is Kevy's dad. And since we've been talking a lot about minor hockey and kind of what's going on with minor hockey, I thought I'd bring in an OG, an old school father here that went through it back in the day when you could smoke in the car and you could have a couple beers at the rink. No, but Kenny, I appreciate you coming, man. How you been? How's everything going?
Good as can be expected given the situation. I really appreciate being here.
Oh, it's awesome. It's good to have you. And Kevy, how you doing? You still got a kid and stuff? Everything's
Yeah,
good,
he's still there, yeah. And I want to, that was a really nice introduction, but actually what he wanted to say is, and since we've been talking about, in quotations, crazy hockey dads, we're going to bring in the OG of crazy hockey dads.
No, I was telling Kenny, but before he came on here, I'm going through with young kids, and man, there's times I'm like, what am I doing this wrong? Am I doing this right? So I figured I've done this before. Where I brought dads on and just to talk about it. I'd love to bring some moms on too, just to get their perspective. But just kind of going through it. I know, Kenny, you're an athlete, growing up yourself, and I definitely do not want to get through your whole story because it'll take us. No, I'm kidding. No, but you were athletic. You played ball, you golfed, you played hockey, and I think you still played hockey up until a couple of years ago, right? With your buddies and stuff. But you were also an involved father, meaning, you have 4 children, 3 girls. You finally got your boy. One question I have before we get into anything. Now, you had 2 girls, 2 beautiful girls, healthy, everything's good. What was that conversation like when I was fortunate I had a boy and a girl, so we kind of dodged that conversation. But 2 girls, you're an athletic dude. You want a boy. You love girls. Girls are going to be athletic. But was it like, let's just wife maybe push and one more, and then you get twins?
Yeah, well,
just every guy's nightmare.
I didn't. That's kind of looking back and wishing you could look forward, and kind of changing the spectrum. But no, it was actually kind of interesting because having the 2 girls and having them, a couple 3 years old, and before Carrie got pregnant again, it was like, yeah, I'm good. We can have another girl. I was so accustomed to it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you never really thought about the sports aspect. I did all the time. It's kind of funny. The thing that struck us most was my last name was going to die if I didn't have.
Oh, right.
You know what I mean? So it was kind of the end of the line.
So you would have had 7.
Name. Yeah. So it was kind of, that was almost more, not more important, but it was something that struck us both. But then when the twins came, it was like, okay, we're good.
How chaotic was that though? Like 2 girls and then 2 young kids and then 2 bang.
Well, you mentioned that you wanted to have some hockey moms on here. You should have
I know.
my wife on
Carrie
here.
should be here, actually, yes.
You're absolutely right. I played baseball, I fished, I hunt. I wasn't around as much as I probably should have been.
Well, that's old school though, man. I think all our dads were like that, right? They were, kind of, hanging out with the guys a little bit. They were involved,
It was crazy. I mean, I even think about the whole diaper thing. Like, we didn't have disposable diapers. We did laundry 4 times a day with twins.
Definitely,
Do you know what I mean? Stuff like that.
Sure.
Yeah, it was crazy. But
yeah,
it was an experience. Looking back, I wouldn't have it any other way.
No, he's right here. He's right here. You don't want to talk trash about him.
We'll do a little one-on-one later.
Yeah. Now, were you talking about the Galerno name? Like, were you a little bit worried when your son was like 28, 29, 30, still not married? Were you
Absolutely, 100%.
Yeah.
So now Bennett's carrying it on.
Yeah. Exactly. There you go. You double the generation in 5 years. It's good. But I guess growing up for you, having a boy and girls, obviously they were athletic, and I know that girls did a lot of different stuff and skating and probably gymnastics and things like that. But when Kevin, will kind of be specific to hockey, but when Kevin got into hockey and kind of got into it, did you start coaching him right away? I know you were involved in hockey schools and kind of working in the hockey industry a little bit too, and we'll get into coaching in a little bit. But did you jump in right away and kind of help him, or did you kind of let him go and let him kind of do his own thing?
No, I can actually remember. I was 5 years old and I took him out to the Garson Arena for his very first skate, and it's kind of like, you don't know what you don't know, right? So I've been through the dance and the modeling and the singing with all the girls and everything, and gymnastics. So I remember coming home from the Garson Arena and telling my wife, I said, he's terrible. He can't skate. Well, of course he can't skate. She said, first time he's been on the ice. And I remember sitting in the stands going, oh, this isn't going to work.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then, of course, it worked out fine.
Yeah. No, definitely. I've said this story before. I had the same thing, man. I came back from public skating. I used to take Maddox public skating. He was like younger and more stuff to do to get him out of the house, leave Jenna and Hallie alone and whatever. And then the one time we went out, he's awesome. He's trying. He couldn't skate. He's walking and whatever, right? The next time we go out, he's lifting his legs up, wants to stay in the bench, doesn't want to do it. I come home, I'm hot. I'm like, this is brutal, man. He's not even trying. And Jenna, he looked at me, probably like carried it and like, hey, idiot, he's like 3 years old, man. Like, what do you expect? And I was like, one of those moments I'm like, oh my God, I gotta pump the brakes here, man. Like, and I know it's so far so good. It's been all right. When did you jump into coaching? Because what I'm getting at here is, as not even a dad, but just being involved in minor hockey, there's a lot of great coaches, but they're all volunteers, and there's no problem with it. But if your kid's good, unless he's going to play AA, which obviously Kev played good hockey growing up, and you show up to practice, and Johnny's dad's the coach, and he's got jeans on and a flat blade stick, and he's never really played before, and he doesn't know how to teach anything. And at what point are you like, I gotta kind of maybe jump in and help out a little bit? Not saying that thought you were the best coach, but I maybe these, not even Kevin, but maybe this group of boys need some help, or this group of people.
Believe it or not, I didn't want to coach. So what happened was, I was up in Sudbury at the time, and you're familiar with that whole area.
Oh, yeah. And
I remember Kevin he was starting to get, as that 5-6-year-old would just start to get it, and all the kids were getting it. You could see that he's going to be fine. I'm going to be okay, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know where he's going, but he's going to play the game. Yeah. He loves the game, right? So some Sudbury people on the board of minor hockey, I'm not from Sudbury originally, right? From Windsor originally. They found out I had a bit of a hockey background, and they wanted me to coach. I said, I'm not interested. And long story really short is, I said, I'll help out in another capacity. Well, they wanted me to be a convener. I'm not being a convener, right? Well, what does it entail? Well, we want you to go look at the coaches and how they're handling themselves in games. And I went, no, I'll go look at how a coach handles himself in a practice. And they didn't get that.
Right.
And this goes back to kind of where you guys are right now, right? I said, what do you mean? No, we want to see let me evaluate their practices, right? And that's how it started. And then I actually started doing some coaching clinics, if you will, for the coaches in terms, and this is like with overheads years ago, right?
Totally. Projectors.
Projectors and everything. We would talk about utilizing the ice time and things like that. So that was my first endeavor into kind of being in a organization, but I didn't want to be a convener. I didn't want to be assistant convener. I didn't want a title. Hey, if I can help out with your coaches, I'll do that. So that's how it started. I never coached him while we were at Sudbury.
That's kind of ahead of the curve, man, because even to this point now, some associations don't have a coach mentor, or like someone that, and even for you, I know a lot of back then too, I mean, I could just imagine what was going on the benches during games. Coaches losing it, probably hacking a butt while they during the game. And I joke because I'm from Sudbury and I grew up in this kind of in that day, right? But that is something like good for like. And I know that you taught a lot of hockey schools and you were involved in like development even back then, even though maybe it wasn't called skill development and stuff, but you guys were doing that. Even the old school hockey schools that were traveling around Huron Hockey School and stuff, like that was skill development. That was, getting better at shooting or passing. And even though you guys maybe partied a little bit more than you should have as instructors, it was still a good product on the ice. I mean, there's guys in this area that still talk about Huron Hockey School and the stuff that was going on, as far as on ice development and things like that,
It was a really good product for that era. But when I look at what you guys are doing now, I'm not here to drop flowers on TPH.
No, keep it coming.
When I look at what you guys doing now, I go, oh my God, you only know what you know, right?
Yeah.
And so, I mean, we could do edge controls, we could shoot the duck, we could do all those things. But when I watch how the game is progressing now, whether it's a AAA or a house league player, to what you guys, not just you guys, but there's other guys out there too, that are bringing it down to that level. Man, if it came to a hockey school, I'd be the first guy to say, I'm out. I'm an administrator. I'll take the bookings. You know what I mean? I'll book the ice, because I couldn't do what you guys do now. You didn't know it back then.
Well, and that's the thing. The game, like you said, the game's changed so much. You know what I mean? And I think that was one of the biggest things that I've noticed, even from when I was young. Like when I was young in Sudbury, there was no skill development coaches. There was no there was power skating and stuff like that, but there was no private lessons that I ever knew about. And then that's all kind of evolved in the last 10, 15 years. And that's the norm now almost. It's the small group stuff and things like that. Now, as a dad, again, going back, kind of, at what point at 5, 6, 7, or 8 years old did you look at your son at times and be like, I'm so scared my son's going to be soft? Because I do this sometimes. And Maddox, if you ever listen to this, I'm so sorry. And my wife's like, would you relax, man? He needs encouragement. Doesn't need you to say, suck it up, or you know what I mean? Like things that, and one of my, not fears, but I want both my kids to be able to be resilient, I guess is the word. So I think my heart's in the right place. I just don't think my head's in the right place, or vice versa. It doesn't matter how you put that. But so did you ever have these thoughts? You go through this, and especially being a little bit living in some small towns like Kitch and Sudbury and stuff. It's it's different mentality, right? You're hanging out with other dads that are probably similar. That hey, you fall, get up. Hey, no, you don't cry at that.
Well, we had those moments, but I'm smiling because I'm coming back to Sudbury again, where he got tough pretty quick. Because I was playing hockey at the time. I'm still relatively young back then. I'm late 20s, early 30s. I'm playing some decent hockey and industrial league hockey, and he's coming out to the rink. And then we're coming back with the boys, and we've got I got a beer fridge in the garage in Sudbury, and it's 20 below, and we're shooting frozen tennis balls at the kid, right? And he's going in the house with welts on him, and Carrie's like, my wife's going, "What did you do?" And we said, "You cry, you can't play again," right? So he got tough quick, and he got the Sudbury skill set and mentality real early.
Yeah. Those old frozen tennis balls, eh? And then, Kevin, for you, I guess, what was like kind of growing up with a father who's involved, and even like watching your dad play sports and stuff like that? How much did that kind of affect you or play on what I'm sure, if he was shooting pucks or like out playing games, you wanted to jump in and play? Like,
About the third time you're in the back seat and he's holding a bloody towel on the way to the hospital, you're probably like, oh yeah, we just go get stitches without saying anything. Probably like the third or fourth time, you're like, oh yeah, that's what tough is.
That's what men's league hockey is. Yeah.
100%. That was probably around the time. But it's funny you say like how you mentioned Maddox, and I have a newborn basically, and I'm telling Nick, like, leave him, he's fine, he'll tough it out. She's like, he's hungry, like he's a baby.
Yeah.
And I'm already thinking about that, like, don't coddle this kid too much when there's probably a little give and take where you're like, just relax, that'll come later when they scrape their knee and you tell them it's okay, not right now.
The worst is
so early to start thinking about it.
Well, and I think you've gone through this probably 1 million times, where your wife tells you like, man, relax, and you're like angry in the moment and you want to fight it, but she's right, and you're like, oh my, and then you kind of step back, you're like, all right, you know what, I'm totally wrong on this, I know that, I don't want to admit it, I'm just going to go to the garage, I'm going to go inside in the back and cut that tree down. But
let me ask you, are you getting better?
Didn't need to get cut down.
Are you getting better at like being like, just okay, I'm getting better already at like, what do you mean I just do it to me. I'm like, okay, she's probably right. Just don't say anything right now.
I'm definitely learning. Again, I think it's a constant. I think it's a constant learning. That's maybe more a question for you. I think you're probably still learning, even with grandchildren and stuff like that. So yeah, I think I've gotten way better, but I still have my moments where I'm just a complete idiot, and I just like, oh, what am I doing? It's frustrating.
But your kids are old enough that you can probably see it a bit, where you're like, oh, he was kind of tough there. Like, oh, she didn't cry. He cried a little bit, but I told them they were okay. They're fine. And then other times you're like, hey, that's too much. Like that, it's not that bad,
Yeah, totally.
But you probably have this where like they get hurt, and then what do? They look at you right away. Like, am I okay?
Oh, yeah.
You're like, yeah, you're okay. But if you go in there and you're like, well, if you react a certain way, it's not gonna be good for you.
Yeah, no, you're right. And I think like sometimes, I remember when my kids were young and they scraped their knee, and like, oh, you're fine, buddy. It's all right. My wife, like, how do you know he's fine? Because I scraped my knee like 1,000 times and it never was that bad. He's fine. But you're right, the reaction, because you do see some parents that, oh my God, it's bleeding. And then the kids are freaking out. And I think there's a medium there, right? Where you maybe don't have to be an idiot about it, but you can also be in the middle where you're like, hey, you'll be fine. We'll get some nap, whatever. We'll clean it up,
You can be the same parent with 4 kids and have 2 that are totally different.
Oh, for sure, right?
My grandkids, I've got one that's, again, I won't even mention Landon's name, but I got one that's soft, and I got another one that, oh my God, tough as nails. Same parents, same upbringing, same everything. So you kind of live by the sword. On
for sure. And I don't think we can say soft anymore. I think it's just he's a sensitive. He's so sensitive. That's fine.
Oh, I can say soft. I'm old. I can say soft.
But I mean, now you're going through it with basically 4 boys that live within 10-15 minutes from you. So you're how much of what you were doing with your children, is it kind of going back now? Like, oh man, I'm dealing with this again.
Oh, I'm great. Like I was not the too crazy hockey dad when he was growing up, but I had my moments. I'm the first to admit it.
Sure.
But now I'm that cool, calm grandparent that's looking at my daughter more than my son-in-law and saying, relax, it's good. He's having fun out there. Just relax. It's house league or, hockey. Just, man, back off a bit. What do you mean? You want me to take him out back and show him how to shoot a puck? He's fine.
So she gets a little intense,
7 years old. So I'm that calming influence now. And if we would have done this 30 years ago, I would have been maybe a bit of a raving lunatic. I'm not sure. But I wasn't that calming influence that I am now.
No, it's interesting. So your sister's a little more intense, eh?
Just in case she listens and doesn't watch, I'm shaking vigorously. In case she's listening, she can't hear me say yes.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh yeah.
Love it. I love it. Now, as far as that, like, being, going through these kind of crazy hockey moments, now when you get a son and, you've got a son that's playing and he's young and he's pretty good. Like, he's actually, how much do you push and pull on that? You know what I mean? How much do you, hey, and I know Kev's a motivated guy and he's a hardworking kid, so I'm sure he was like that as a young kid too, or you probably didn't have to tell him very often to go work out or go shoot pucks. He did a lot of that stuff on his own. But, were there moments for you where you were like, man, because I think all of us, we can see, man, he's got potential, he's athletic, she's athletic. Like, man, if she just worked a little harder on this, they could do more with it.
That's a great question, and I'm going to be brutally honest. I was harder on him than I should have been because I saw skills that he had that I never had, and that's the God's honest truth. I was the player. Yeah, I played, and I didn't have any success to a large degree, but I was the guy that the coaches couldn't cut because I just worked so damn hard.
Yeah,
I was that guy, and I knew that, right? I knew I didn't have the skill set that I saw him have at an early age. So I was hard on him, and I know I was hard on him, and I think that's why. And in hindsight, probably the wrong rationale, but it's only now that I can look back and say that's, it doesn't justify it. But it rationalizes it for me to a certain extent.
Yeah, and Kev, did you feel like some of that hardness, like as far as, your dad being on you on certain things?
Well, you've said this twice already. Like, you only know what you know. So it wasn't at the time, no one's being hard on me. No one was harder on me than me, especially as I got older, when I became a teenager and
now.
And then,
and you didn't have an older brother or anything to get, you didn't have a benchmark, right?
So I genuinely loved it. So it was like, no, this is what happens when I can look back and be like, I wasn't working hard enough. So I heard about it, or I didn't do this. So I heard about it, whatever. And there was never a time where I was like, I can honestly say, I was like, this isn't fun, and everyone goes through their minor hockey stuff, and everyone has a story. We've talked about this before. You go through some minor hockey's hard for parents, for kids. And so when we got to those tough ages, bantam and midget, I went through some stuff, moving towns, and there was definitely some times where I was like, this sucks. Is it worth it? But it wasn't because I didn't love the game or because someone was making me play. It was all that extra stuff that we've talked about before, and I guarantee you know more. You shielded me from some of the stuff.
No, but I think this is important because I think I just had a podcast the other day with Mitch that was talking about. I think everyone's gone through periods of their career, like minor hockey career or junior hockey in college, whatever, where you hated the game, you wanted to quit. Like I went through it, you went through it. I think everybody does. It's something, especially you play long enough, right? Man, you love your job, you hate it some days. You know what I mean? So. I think that's super normal. But the one thing I want to take away from what you're saying about your dad is, that your dad being hard on you. Like when you look back on it, was it appropriate? You know what I mean? Was it you didn't score 3 goals that game? That's unacceptable. Or was it you didn't work? You know what I mean? Was it hitting on the
100%?
I look at you two now, and like you guys still like golfing together. You still hang out together. You still come down and hang out. And I love that. You know what I mean? I think that is, to me, that is kind of the end goal, I think, of every dad is get through these, who knows how, like everyone's like, oh man, your kids are good kids. I'm like, I don't know, man. We'll wait till they're 19, 20 and we'll see, like call me then, because I hope I can golf with my boys and my girls and hang out or whatever. Right. So you guys have done that. So clearly you didn't leave at 15, 16 to go play junior and hate your dad. Like, thank God I'm out of here. Which happens. Right. So like, the amount that he pushed and pulled you and stuff like that were obviously appropriate. And also, Ken, for you, like you knew you had a kid that was driven. You know what I mean? So for you, it's like, man, I can cattle prod him a little bit and get him because that's one thing that I think is important too. When you have an elite athlete who's good at young ages, you don't have to be riding them all the time. I think it's really important to have that relationship as a dad and a son. I think that's number one. But man, if you tell him like, hey buddy, if you get a chance, maybe go shoot some pucks today, just give him a little poke every once in a while. He's going to go do it. And you know what I mean? And like, that's going to get him better. And that, and he's got potential. I think that's fair,
I want to be very clear, like everyone's different. Not to say this kind of is, I don't think it's right, but like I was never pushed or motivated by the wrong things, like scoring goal. Never once do I ever remember that. Like I really was lucky enough to have a dad that knew the game and was athletic just in a bunch of things, but specifically hockey. And he pushed me the right ways. I'll never forget the story. I've never told you this. I don't know how old I was. It was before we moved from Sudbury, so 7, 8 years old. And I remember Pulowski's dad was the head coach, and
God.
yeah, I haven't heard that name probably in 25 years. And he was late. My dad was the assistant coach. He was late, and he walks on the bench. I remember the bench like it was one of those big benches where the back is flat with the seat. And he walks in, and the first thing I told him is how many goals I scored already in the game. It was halfway through the game, and I'd scored 2 goals. I'm like, hey, I scored 2 goals. Like telling the coach, like proud, like thinking he's gonna be proud of me. And my dad looked at me like I had just stolen his car. Like, and I remember the look he gave me, and I'm like, oh crap. Like, and then he didn't talk to me then. And then I remember the car ride home where he's like, that is not what you do. Like, coach is just getting there. How many goals you score does not matter. Like, do not do that. And I would never forgotten that as like you're right. Why is that important that you need to, and I don't know why I've thought about it before. I've been like, that is not an important thing. And I've took way more than just like telling somebody how many goals I scored. I just took more from that. But like, that doesn't matter. Like, I didn't mention the score, how the team was playing. And I was young. I didn't know that stuff then, but it was just more like a lesson in like, I probably didn't realize it until later on. And I have no idea
stuck with you, man.
why this one thing stuck with me, but it stuck with me. Like, that doesn't matter how many I've scored. Like, I couldn't tell you the score of the game, but I can remember this story from 30 years ago almost now. Yeah. I can tell you how many goals I scored in this game and the rink we were at, and I couldn't tell you if we won, lost, or if someone got hurt or anything about the game, and never forgotten it. And that kind of stuff, the right kind of messages stick with you. And I was...
But I think that's an awesome story, number one. And I love, like, to me, that is the most important thing at young ages. And when I talk to parents and stuff at that, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, like being a good teammate, understanding teams first, like carrying your bag, saying please and thanks to your mom, like, and dad for bringing you and buying you a new stick and all these kind of things. How much did you and Carrie like emphasize those little things away from the rink? You know what I mean? And I know like I know I am like this as well, but I will take hockey away in a second from my kid if he's not acting respectfully, and if he's, being acting up in school or being a bully, whatever it is, right? Like, that'll be gone in a second. It'll hurt me as much as it'll hurt him probably, but I'll take that away. But how important is that for you and Carrie to kind of have a bit of a care for them, but for all your kids, teaching them those kind of like, doesn't matter if you score goals, doesn't matter if you're a good skater, doesn't matter if you can stick handle a puck. Like,
I mean, we're all hockey background people. I mean, there's nobody that's played or coached or been involved with this game that doesn't equate hockey to life skills.
For sure.
Right? And that's something that, as I went on to be a coach later on, that I've never lost sight of. And I've always tried to draw it back. So even at an early age, it was, and I mean, you can see skills and you can see leadership at an early age, right? And you can see some of those aspects that are going to be, and Kevin and I, he may not remember this, but we talked about this at a young age about you may not make it anywhere in hockey, but those things are going to help you get a job. Understanding how to communicate with your coach, take direction. You're going to be a better person when you got to go to ABC Company and work, or then be an ABC Company boss and have people work for you. Those things, and we had those discussions, I think, loosely at a very early age, like teenage age for sure.
Yeah, I think it's huge, man, because I agree. Like sport is great, and man, if you get to play professional baseball or basketball or hockey, it's unbelievable. That's amazing. But how many kids get to do that? Not a lot. So you're right. Like, use sport as that vehicle to help these kids get better, and it's a good carrot, right? As far as motivating, like, I'm sure you can smack Kevin in line a little bit just by throwing hockey in his face. Like, you're not going to go to practice if you don't do whatever, right? And any kind of motivation, I think, is huge. But when you have somebody that loves the game, then it's easier to motivate for sure.
Yeah, and Kevin mentioned he didn't need my motivation. I hope our motivation from both my wife and I came in a little different package, kind of the complete package. We talked a lot about it. Carrie and I talked about it growing up, and I was that potentially crazy hockey parent when I was in the stands, right?
Yeah.
So I needed a benchmark, and I needed somebody to kick me back and kick me in the butt and say, "Whoa, I saw you pacing around in the stands." I remember telling me that. Why are you doing that? Your son's looking at you. He's 8 years old and he's looking up in the stands. Is that really? And I went, holy, yeah, just what I need, a smart wife. But that happened more than once, and it made me a better hockey parent and a better coach.
Yeah, I remember my mom telling me a story. We were doing like power skating, like not even pucks on the ice, and my brother and I were doing it, and we were skating or whatever. My mom was watching. and I remember telling me the story, and she was yelling at us, and we never really looked in the stands much at our parents. Like I remember my dad being like, you can look and say hi, but like, don't look in the stands. Look at your coach. You don't look in the stands. Like, and this is for any parent out there. Tell your kids not to look at you. Like, you can say hi quick, and then you play, and then after the game, I'll come get you. But anyways, my mom was yelling or whatever. I didn't know what was going on, and then after later on, she tells us, she's like, I could catch myself like kind of like yelling at you guys to skate harder. You weren't doing it well. Skate harder. And she's like, I stopped myself and I went out of into the lobby and started watching from the lobby because I was embarrassing myself. And I was like. And that's, one of those things, you got all these life lessons that stick with you. But when I watch Maddox play or Holly play, I'm like, my mouth might as well be full of blood sometimes because I just want to, and I'm just biting my tongue, being like, shut up, Dwayne, shut up. And if Jenna's beside me, she'll get like, I'll be telling her, kind of just whispering to her. But I really try to leave it on the ice, leave it where it is. And they're young enough now that it doesn't matter. It's how hard did you work, all those little things, right? And so yeah, I think it's huge for sure to kind of park it a little bit sometimes, but.
And it's probably hard once you get in the car. Like I can only imagine how hard that is. And I've been in the car or like on the ice with your kids, and then maybe they're on with me, and then we see in the hallway, see you, and you all, the first things out of your mouth are pretty much always like, did you have fun? How hard do you think you worked? You know what I mean? Like that's it. And how hard is that? Like after you go see one of their games for that to be your question when really you just want to skip it and get to the part where they're riding in the trunk.
Yeah. And totally. And so far, my kids are young, but so far, and I like this kind of going to come around to a question for you, Kenny. But my kids are young, so the questions I ask are that, like, hey, Jay, did you have fun today? Hey, how'd you enjoy the session? Oh, good. Hey, how was the game? Or who are the best players on the ice today? And they'll kind of just both teams and and there have been episodes where I've been like, hey, like, do you think you worked hard today? And I go, I probably you got to work hard or whatever, right? But they're young, and I want it to be fun. You know what I mean? So for you, at what age did you start kind of putting a little bit more pressure on the gas pedal a little bit as far as just, kind of, okay, now you're playing AA or AAA and you're 10, 12 years old or whatever that age is. Now it's time, like we're spending a lot of money and time doing this. If you want to do this, great. If you don't want to do it, no problem. But if you're going to do it, we need a little bit here, like, is there any time that you can remember?
Yeah, I can kind of pinpoint it almost. You have those moments.
September 10th.
There was and Kevin's really short history was he was playing AAA in Kitchener. We moved out to a little village called Ayr, and we were told at that time we could play in Kitchener AAA because Ayr didn't have any, what was it, a D center or something, right? As it turned out, Cambridge complained because they had a AAA team. And long story short was he didn't want to go to Cambridge. All his buddies were in Kitchener, played baseball and everything with them. Long story short is we ended up playing in the village of Ayr for a couple of years, right? Probably the best hockey experience I had, right? And I'm going to get to answer your question.
Yeah, no, it's good.
It was like I'm that hockey coach from, just saying, okay, we got to practice at 7:00 Sunday morning, and the village Ayr looks at me and goes, no. We do our chores first, then we go to church, and we don't do hockey on Sunday. We do family. So I had to do this whole take back about this community and how still wanted, and as it turned out, we had one heck of a little team. We won all over the place. We were beating junior BT, or what do you call it?
AA teams.
AA teams. And that. We were very successful. I remember at one game, and I was coaching, and I came home. We drove from the rink to our house was about 30 seconds?
Yeah, it was not far.
And I told him once, don't ever waste my time again. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do.
Broke my heart after I said that. Because in my mind, he didn't play very good. I was upset. I don't even tell you what happened in the game. I couldn't even tell you. But I remember to that moment that I said that, and I know it hurt him. And that was the moment that I said, boy, I can motivate differently. I can get more out of this kid. Not that way.
Right.
A whole different spectrum.
Right.
A whole different paradigm shift that I did. That was the day I shifted the way I handled it.
Okay, so I like this because telling him, like, that's something that I could see myself saying to my kid, okay? So I want you to stop me in my tracks here because it's going to come out at some point. Like, don't waste my time.
Don't waste my time again. Don't ever waste my time again.
And that's like, you're not even mad at him, but you're just like, you're insulting him a little bit, number one, right? So how did you change a little bit? Like, what was the approach moving on from there to like moving forward? Like, how did you kind of motivate him from that point on, or from that week, kind of after that episode?
Well, I knew there was a skill set there, right?
And he clearly had the drive, right?
Yeah. And the last thing I wanted to do was undermine that drive. I went, oh my gosh, that's totally destructive approach to this. Now, we also knew at that point in time that if he was going to go anywhere in hockey, we couldn't continue to play in.
Sure.
So
Because what age was this that you guys, what
This
roughly?
would have been, I think I switched over to Cambridge, like it was minor or major Bantams. This would have been just before that. So,
Yeah.
So second year Pee Wee or first year
last
Bantam.
year Pee Wee maybe.
So you're looking at like kind of 11, 12,
Yeah.
13, which is like, I mean, for a hockey dad who's got that 3As on his kid's sweater and his kids are in the 3As, like that's a tough move to say, you know what, screw it. We're just going to go here. And, you know, a lot of these small towns have really good players that are just like playing the small town. And then if you got a good coach, man, you could help these kids get so much better and
We did.
learn a ton, right? So good
I
for
bet
you
there
for
was
making that
half
jump.
a dozen kids on that team that ended up playing junior B.
Yeah.
Which is
For sure, yeah.
huge.
There's a couple.
Yeah, which is
Yeah.
huge.
And I've said this on here before, like exactly what you said, like some of the most fun years.
Yeah.
Like small town, you go to baseball, hockey, school, weekend fun, birthdays with the same kids. Like it's the same group.
Yeah.
You're around them. It was a ton of fun. It was really, really fun couple years.
And it was tough to leave, but
Kind of had to, right?
I felt we had to because he was so motivated.
But I
He
wanted
would-
to. You weren't like you weren't telling me like, oh hey, I wasn't sitting there going, I want to keep playing with my
Right.
buddies.
No,
I was like,
he
no,
knew-
I want to.
he was smart enough
I want
to
to
know.
go.
You kind of know, right? Like,
Yeah.
if I want to make the
Yeah.
next step, I gotta play better. So yeah. So how'd your motivation change with him? Like, how'd you kind of keep that relationship of dad and son? Because that could have got really fractured at that moment had you kept on that path, right?
Yeah,
And that's
it-
what I'm
it was-
scared of, right? So
It was tough because the thoughts originally were he could play in Kitchener. Now he had to play against all his buddies in Cambridge. Hate rivalry as no minor hockey that I've ever seen. They just didn't like each other. Right?
so Kitchener, Cambridge don't like each other. They're really close
No.
in centers, and then all his buddies are in Kitchener. He's
Yeah.
playing
he
in
has
Cambridge.
to go to play
so
in
yeah.
Cambridge, right? He's resented in Cambridge because Kitchener, we were supposed to play in Kitchener, but he knew we wanted to play in Kitchener.
Right,
It was happened to be a
right.
buddy of ours, Tony Martindale, who I'm sure everybody knows, and was no fault of Tony. He said, yeah, you can play. And then we found out that Cambridge complained, right?
And they're
said-
closer, so you're in their
they wanted
boundaries,
a
right?
triple,
Yeah.
he's a AAA quality player. So guess what happened? He takes some local Cambridge spot,
Right.
made for a really tough situation. So my motivation changed to protect my son more emotionally than it did to push him or develop him hockey wise. We really had to be cautious of that
For sure,
situation.
man,
It was a
definitely.
terrible situation.
Definitely.
But he had to be there if he wanted to move on.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was really tough.
Yeah, but
couple
that
years.
makes everyone gets that crossroads, and I think it's really important if your kids are asking, "Hey, Dad, I want to play at a bit of a higher level," or you know what I mean. I want to play with better players. Then if you have the means and the know-how of how to do that, then try it out, see what happens. Clearly, he could play at that level, but when you get into AAA, and this is still the same today, where you get that political side of the game that parents, it's a nightmare for parents, and if you can shield as much as you can from the kids, that's great. But every kid's gonna feel it a little bit just from those kids or whatever the situation is. You know what I
I
mean?
was afraid he was going to lose his jam for
sure.
the game. I was totally afraid that this experience was not going to work for him. Something saved us. Summer hockey.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not a total believer in the summer hockey. I think kids need a break, but this is when summer hockey first came in,
Yeah.
right?
It's kind of getting really popular at that time.
Started to get really popular. So you're having barbecues. You're in Toronto. You're in Hamilton, and guess what? He's playing with some of his buddies from
Yeah.
Kitchener. So now there's no rules. There's no alliance. There's no OHA. And I put together with a fellow out of Stratford a bunch of kids that had already been playing summer hockey that maybe didn't have a place to play.
Sure.
Right. So they already had their summer A team. I forget the name of the Midwest.
Yeah.
Midwest North Stars. So we got M&M Meats to sponsor us, and we started a team called the M&M
Meteors,
or
yeah,
something.
yeah.
Right, yeah. And I took all the kids that couldn't make the other, not couldn't make,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
didn't have a spot.
place.
And
Yeah.
good
Right?
people, like even now, I didn't notice at the time, but like parents and fun. It was fun. We did not win.
Yeah.
This was not like going out to plucking the best kid from Hamilton, the best kid from, and I didn't notice at the time, but this was not about plucking the best kids and
We took good
and
kids.
winning. Just took,
I
yeah.
wanted to play.
Which I love, man. I think this is perfect. Yeah.
Some of those parents, I go to those kids' weddings now.
Yeah.
Every summer we get invited to their weddings.
Yeah.
Some of my best friends are parents from that,
Yeah.
environment. So to this day, I'm not a crazy summer hockey guy, but I think it saved us.
Well, I said this a bunch before too. I think summer hockey or spring hockey, whatever you want to call it, has value for people that have had a bad season. Maybe they didn't play a lot. They had a tough going with the coach or tough experience throughout the year. Now you get a chance to play with just different people. And if you're a high end kid, you get a chance to play on that high end team with a bunch of players. Good for you. That's awesome. But I think like it's funny because I'm going through it right now with my son. He wants to play. He wants to ask to play better with better players and stuff. I'm like, okay, well, we'll look at it. So we're looking to put together a little development team like that, right? But I didn't care. I told another father I'm doing it with. I'm like, I don't care. This father knows the age group way better than I do. I was like, I don't care how good these kids are, as long as they can skate and like play at a level. But let's go after good kids that want to get better and good parents, and let's just have some fun with it. And may play in a tournament or two, may not, doesn't matter. But and so I'm excited for it. I think it'll be really fun. But I love the fact that that was your number one goal is let's get good parents, let's get good kids, and then let's just have some fun with it.
They're mostly friends of ours, quite honestly, and they loved the game. So and took us. I remember the one time we went out and beat that Midwest team. It was a couple years later in the summer.
Yeah, we only
thought we won the Stanley Cup.
Yeah, I agree.
Even in Woodstock, I even remember that.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, that's cool. That's really good. Now, I want to go back on this because I think this is really important. Now, what were some of the tactics that you used to kind of keep Kevy motivated? I know the year's tough, so you don't want to get on him too much about just even, the whole about everything. You want to keep him positive, but just keeping confidence in young kids. Like, how hard is that as a parent sometimes, especially when he's hard on himself and beating himself up after games because he didn't play well or whatever it is, right? What kind of tactics did you use on that? Was it a lot of conversations? Was it kind of tough love? Was it
I think, first of all, he made it very easy, because he was so motivated. Didn't have to do a lot of that. But I think it started to change the way I watched a hockey game on TV, right? I used to watch a hockey game on TV as entertainment. I can't watch a hockey game on TV anymore as entertainment. I start to break down everything. You start to look, look what wow, look at that. And we would have discussions watching a game like that. I didn't do it as motivation. I did it because I was really interested in it, and he was too, right? Yeah. So I really didn't have to change my mode of operation with him. It was more make sure he's prepared, right? Mom was great at the meals. We did all that kind of stuff at an early age where you got to prepare. We didn't do psychological. We didn't get people introduced to the psycho part of the game till be in Kitchener, but we kind of did our own thing. Hey, you got to start to prepare. You need your sleep. You need to eat. Yeah. You have to peak. You got to understand that even at 13, 14 years old, if you get crazy now, you're going to peak in the first period. We need you to peak in the third period. Well, how do you do that? By doing those things. So it's just discussion. Sure. Right? Just a little bit of hockey knowledge a tiny bit of hockey knowledge that I may have gathered somewhere that we kind of moved towards that. It was more that environment before a game, before a practice. Yeah. You got to prepare for practice too, man. Yeah. This isn't just fun. This is practice. Practice is going to be fun, but you got to prepare for that. No, I think it's good. And even for kids that are in tough situations, getting them to focus on other little things rather than like being scared to go to the rink. Worry about your pregame going to the rink. Worry about what you know what I mean? What you can control basically. Because if you got a couple guys that are on your team that are, like to stir the bee's nest a little bit or causing crap all the time, well, you can't control that. We used to play ping pong all the time. Yeah, right. A lot of times, play ping pong. Yeah. Game day. Take the hour, play ping pong. Yeah. Something like that. Just refocus.
Something you said too, which I think has a bigger, like the bigger picture is like take practice. I always remember practice being very important, and not because it was just because it was fun, yes, but like it was important. You're not wasting time. It's not less important than a game. And I know there's those things that you've seen on social media and about like how much time you actually spend on the ice in a game versus in practice. Sure. Well, make the most of it. And this goes back to like we talk about this all the time, but coaching, like how I learned that practice was important because my coach or my dad kind of instilled that in me. If you don't have any team, if you don't have a coach that's taking practice important, he's showing up, like you said, in jeans and a tie, and he's showing up 1 minute before and he's got no practice plan, how are those kids going to take it seriously? That's a great point. Yeah. So, and I learned that from him. And I remember being at a young age being like, why is this guy 10 minutes late? Or why is he not even trying at practice right now? Yeah. And I just didn't have that. Some of my issues with even men's league now is like, I don't want to try hard and I can't just go through the motions. Yeah. So I get into it sometimes, but that was just part of the deal growing up. Like you're already there. So put in an effort. Well, and I think that's so important because we hear it now, especially through this time we're in right now, is all these guys, they miss games. My kid hates practice. How does your kid hate practice? Your kid hates practice because you keep saying you hate practice. And to your point, if you have a coach that's not there, runs like some of the stuff we've seen in practice in the last 3 months, last 3 years,
I hate practice watching this practice.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and I love practice, but you know, it's, you know, bringing that energy to the rink, having fun at the rink, being creative, coming up with new drills or stealing new drills off the internet or off the guy next door. Doesn't matter. But, you know, that'll make practice fun, and you're going to get better at practice. But being prepared for practice, I think, is huge. You know what I mean? And as a young kid or as a coach or whoever it is, I think is massive. And going back to what you said, Kenny, about that routine, I think, you know, not that you have to have a pregame nap before practice, but just even checking your gear, making sure your sticks are ready, you know, all that stuff,
thing.
right? Yeah.
Huge thing about gear. I guarantee you, still to this day, for old timers hockey, you probably check your gear 3 times.
I've told this before. Do you remember being in a tournament and I was like Pee Wee? I was still playing in air, being Pee Wee. I forgot my shin pads at the hotel, which was like down the street, like a block away. I forgot them as I was getting dressed. Probably had to be there an hour before, 45 minutes. I had the shin pads like 25 minutes before the game started. He made me sit the first period. Because he's wrong. Yeah, they were sitting right behind the heater in the hotel. You know what I mean? But you didn't pack your bag. How are you not ready?
Yeah.
I have never forgotten a piece of gear since that one
So,
day. And was that a little too much? Maybe it was a little too much.
I like it. It
wasn't too much.
No, I like it.
No way.
Have you ever been driving somewhere right now as a coach going to practice? Stop your truck on the side of the road to check just in case. Like, I think I felt my bag being light. And all we have in there is like skates, gloves, and a helmet.
I was leaving the rink yesterday, packed my gear in the office, right across the hall, walked down to I checked it. I got in the truck, I put it in, I opened it to check it again. I had checked it 4 minutes earlier.
I've done it, man. Side of the highway, man. Yeah. Pull over. I'm like, man, it feels like I feel like I forgot something. Pull over, check my gear. I'm like, no, I'm good, and then go. But yeah, and I mean, you had a couple experiences like that, so have I, where you forget your gear and it just, you know, and if you get tough consequences like that, where you're like sitting a period, it definitely hits home, you know what I mean? So, but those are some of those little lessons learned, you know, when you're a kid. Another one too is, you know, laying down on the ice, like staying on the ice when a kid gets hurt. You see with young ages, like you got 4 grandsons going through right now, so maybe not them, but other kids just are laying down every time they get touched. And I remember when I was young, I never really did, and maybe I just never got hurt that much when I was young, but I remember one time I got hit and I fell behind the net and I was stayed down. But I hit, you know that bone, you know your hip bone right there, like when you hit that on the ice, your pants move, and I thought I broke my hip, like it hurt so bad, but I tried to get up, and then my dad was like a trainer on the bench, came sprinting down. You okay? You okay? The other coach came on too, and I'm like, yeah, I'm okay. I got up, went to the bench, it got better, I kept playing. But after the game, my dad's like, I was really worried, man, because you don't ever stay down, you know, and that's one of those things that hit with me. I'm like, I am never staying down.
Yeah.
Like, you kind of take pride in that, you know?
Do.
And I got not rewarded, but just being like, good, you know, you never stay down, man. We were really worried about you. And I was like, I took that as a sense of pride, right? I was old enough, 10, 11.
Totally agree.
So after that, I was like, I'm not like, you know, very, very rarely I have to get hit real hard or something awkward to stay down. And it wasn't that I was tough or like that, but it's just those little life lessons that you learn. And
it's a cultural mindset.
And I really reward, if I'm coaching kids, I really reward kids for getting back up, because anyone who's skated in gear, it sucks to fall on the ice, man. That ice is hard. Your elbow pad moves a bit, or your shin pad moves a bit, or you land on your butt. Like, it doesn't feel good. So when kids do get up, it's like, man, good job, buddy. And sometimes you see them get hit kind of hard. Like, you okay? Yeah, man, good job. Like, you know what I mean? And make sure you're cool, make sure you're good. But those are little things to me that go such a long way in that life lessons of hockey. You know what I mean? Which are huge. Now, as you guys got older, kind of getting into junior, and you know, at what age for you did you kind of say, man, he might be able to go play some college hockey, some, you know what I mean? Kind of move on. Let's say even play junior. Like when he's getting to that band of midget, are you like, man, I have a son that might be able to get a chance to play some junior hockey and kind of have a bit of an idea of that?
Yeah, I remember. I actually remember, I don't know if Kevin remembers this. We were up at living in Kitchener at the time. We were up at our, we call him Uncle Dan's camp, right? And he had skated, I think I'd brought your gear to skate.
Yeah, there was like kind of not really, a little bit of pro, but some college and junior guys.
College
and
kids were skating up in Sudbury or whatever it was. Yeah. So we got some ice time up there. And on the way back, I had made connection with...
One of the players played in Perry Sound.
Said, why don't you come down there? We're having their junior A tier 2 team, right? And I think you were only 15.
Yeah, I wasn't.
I don't even think you're of age. Might have been 15.
I don't know.
Anyhow, maybe I can't remember. But anyhow, on the way down, we stopped, got a hotel room, and he spent 2 days there. And I went, and he's not very big. He's not strong yet. I mean, he hasn't got any man muscles yet, but he's skating out. And there was the guy you're talking about kind of took you under your wing, right? Well, he had 2 skates with him, and it was like, not far off.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you remember this. After the first day, we were sitting out at dinner that night, and we were just at a little motel, whatever. And you're like, well, I'm picturing this now. I never thought this before, but I remember you saying to me, like, well, like, hey, are you you're kind of beating around the bush? Like what happens if you make it? Like, are you prepared to move here and like, you know, wear a half visor? And like, you asked me that, and I was like, yeah, that's why we're here, right? And I think you were kind of like, oh, okay. Do you remember saying that or not?
No, I don't. But I mean, it makes perfect sense that that's, as a dad, as a 15 or 16-year-old, you would.
And you're probably kind of like, oh crap, he might.
I was kind of hoping maybe he just stunk the place out and just would go home and maybe you can play tennis or something, right? You know, I took it. I went, holy. You know? Yeah. And then as it turned out, he was too young. And I mean, then the older guy there, the senior guy, was really great with us, right? He just said, man, you come back next year, man. Like this is, you know, this is a real deal here, right? And then I think we went to a couple other camps. Just for experience. I had went to Aurora, went to a couple other places, right? Just for sheer experience, right? And at that point I went, man, he's got to get a little bigger and stronger. And that's where he learned to get fast. Like that's where you learn the difference between quick and fast.
Sure.
To my, you know, limited hockey knowledge. I mean, you can be fast, but you got to be quick. There's a big difference to me, right?
100%.
So we worked on his quickness, if you will, back long before you could call it skills development or anything, right? Those first 3 strides and steps and all that stuff that I was taken from my basic Huron hockey school experience. And we worked on a lot of that. He ran. He hated running, but he ran. We did summer sprints and he did stuff like that on his own, right? So that was really to answer your question, that's when I really said, oh, this, you know, a year or two is going to make a big difference if he can get bigger and stronger. Yeah. And it did.
Yeah. No, I think that, it's, and even that stuff, like, I don't know how many kids right now would go to a track on their own and do sprints. Like, I remember doing this all the way through from almost midget hockey, work out on my own, run on my own, do sprints on my own. Like, I was telling the story to some kids the other day, like my first jogs were, I could run for about a minute and walk for a minute, jog for a minute. And my pace was probably like a 7-minute mile. Like, it was embarrassing, but that's how you start, man. And then you figure, then you're doing sprints on your own. You're doing sprints in a field. You're doing whatever it is, right? And like, and it comes back to like, how bad do you want it? You know, and I know, you know, I'm an undersized guy. You're an undersized guy in NHL or pro standards, but you know, being able to play at junior is not easy. So anybody who goes from minor hockey to junior, to me, is like, that's a big step. That's a huge honor. Good for you. That's kind of getting up that pyramid a little bit, right? And what were your first like memories, I guess, of making that first junior team and kind of playing with 18, 19, 20-year-olds?
I remember my first year, I went to Windsor. So I was kind of up and down with like a junior B and junior C team. And I moved away at the same time. So my first memories were probably as much of like living away from home.
Sure.
And you were the same, your first year junior, and a lot of kids are, but were as much of some of the stuff I went through living away from home at the same time as like playing with older guys. But the biggest thing I remember was like, I thought everyone was jacked. Like, you know what I mean? Really, now you look back at like, you were just really tiny.
A lot of like chest, bicep.
Yeah, exactly.
And that was back then, right? Everyone's just big when they're tying their skates. Yeah.
But my biggest issue was always just like, how am I supposed to lean on this guy? Or if this guy leans on me, I'm dead. Because I was always so small.
Yeah.
That was it. But maybe I was ignorant too. I don't remember ever feeling like, I always remember feeling, man, give me a chance. Like, I can play. Yeah. Give me more of a chance. Not like, oh, I'm just lucky to be here. Like, I was more pissed that I wasn't getting a better chance. And that was probably a bit ignorant at the time. Like, looking back, I probably thought I was better than I really was.
Sure.
But that was it. There's nothing that jumps off the page to me in terms of like, I just wanted to, I was so focused on me almost selfishly, like, get better and give me more ice, and I want to play and I want to earn my spot, you know, stuff like that.
But you didn't play small. As a small guy, you
I agree.
One thing you never, and I never had to instill that in him. He just never played small.
Yeah.
I mean, he also knew he's not going to take down a 210-pound guy either, you know, with a body check, but he played smart.
Almost to a fault sometimes. Like, I had such a small man syndrome, like proving that I wasn't 5 feet tall. Like,
I have no idea what you're talking about.
No, when you got to junior, I think you kind of got what I'm capable of doing, what I'm not capable of doing. Difference between body. Yeah. Really good at body position. It's little things, right? You know?
Sure.
But he didn't play small. So that helped him.
But that's the one thing too, like right now for the game's a little bit, I don't want to say easier, but a little more forgiving for small guys right now, where it's not as much clutching and grabbing, and you can free flow a bit, you can fly around. But I think if you're a smaller guy or an undersized guy, you still need to be tough. And not fighting tough, but you still need to be able to take a hit. Still need to be able to get in those battles with big guys. Still need, to play a hard way. Yeah, for sure.
You need to take it shift after shift.
Yeah, no, definitely. Whereas, big guys can get away a little bit more. They're big. They cover more ice. Yeah. They're strong. They're just naturally heavier, so I think it is huge. But going back to what you're saying about like small man syndrome, like I played angry most of my.
Oh yeah.
I was just and I mean everyone's chirping you because you're small and you're a midget and all this stuff. You know what I mean? So you're playing angry a lot, which I loved. And yeah, if anyone called anything, I'd be right back in their face. You know what I mean?
And I know you were sort of similar, but it was also like, especially when I was really young and played AAA, then I stopped playing AAA. Well, I was never big or good enough to play AAA. So when I went there again, it was like, I'm proving him wrong. Okay, fine. He did fine at these two back in AAA for 2 years, but he's never going to play junior.
Yeah.
And okay, fine. But he's never going to be a good junior player.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And he's definitely not going to college.
Sure.
Okay, he doesn't play a lot. He's definitely not going to play after college. Like,
right.
You know what I mean? So
yeah.
I don't know if you remember like being done. And then it was a couple years later where I finally felt like, man, I haven't felt like I've been fighting anyone and not physically fighting, but like mentally fighting to prove
stress,
people wrong.
Yeah.
For like a while, you almost miss it. Like now I look back and I miss it. But at the time, it's like, love to just worry about myself and just play and not feel like I got to worry about proving everyone else wrong.
If you're 6'5", you can do that.
Yeah.
A little bit, yeah.
If you're,
it's different, right?
You don't have the luxury of doing that, and that's what I think makes guys like you not just stronger on the ice, but stronger off the ice.
Yeah, no, it definitely makes you more resilient, right? Because I agree. Like I was told that a lot too. Oh, you got cut because you're too small or whatever. And I think it's one of those things where I know for you and for me, it added way more fuel to my fire. I'd had a lot of FU workouts just because somebody said I was small or, you know what I mean? I'm never going to make it anywhere because I'm too small.
Or even getting up when you got hit.
Yeah.
Like if you stayed down, like, oh yeah, he's kind of tiny. It probably hurt. Well, no, I don't care. You're small. Get up. Like,
yeah, for sure. Yeah. No matter how much that hurt, we still got off. Yeah. Trying to catch your breath, getting back to the bench.
Yeah.
And then like going through, as a dad, I guess more so than a coach, but watching your son, play junior hockey and then starting to get a little bit of interest from colleges and stuff like that. What is that like for, parents going through that as far as just, is it one of those things where it just kind of naturally happens and it's just kind of the next step? Or do you kind of see it happening and are you trying to line things where, hey, you should be sending letters out. Hey, you should be reaching out to colleges. Hey, you should be, kind of how does that all work?
I don't think there's anything natural about it. Like I was actually working for a company. I was still fully employed with Bell Canada, but I was working for a company called Cardinal Sports, which you're probably familiar with. And we help people prepare for scholarships, Division I programs, right? And so I was fortunate in the sense that I understood the academics that were required. And I couldn't tell you, Blazer, how many parents I talked to that had quality kids that were able to play Division I, but by the time they got to me or I got to them, their academics were done and they weren't going anywhere, right? Yeah. And they couldn't understand it. So, hey, I remember coming down and doing clinics for you at your OHA high performance camp here in London, and that's exactly what I did. We talked to those 14 and 15-year-old parents about if you have these aspirations, you have to get your transcripts in this order. So, long answer to short question, right? But so I knew that Kevin wasn't an OHL player based on his size. I had teams call, but he was going to go 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th round. Yeah. You know what I mean? And I didn't see him losing his eligibility for that. He needed a couple of years of strength and size and skill development. So I had that knowledge, right? And I'll never forget him coming home from school and the difference between, and you basically had to prepare yourself for university. Yeah. To make a long story short, is you had to prepare yourself for university, not college. And if you did that, you probably were pretty close to getting through the clearinghouse. And I remember coming home going, why am I taking this hard math? Because I worked my butt off and I got 70, and Joe Blow at the team got 85, and I know I'm smarter than he is, or as smart as he is. Had to explain to him that.
But back then it's different now, but back then I think it's called something different.
General.
Then it was advanced general,
whatever they call
even
it,
something
right?
else.
Basic,
But it was back. You would know.
So we were forcing him to take those academic requirements, both for university. You could still go to college if you wanted to be a plumber. That's fine, right?
Yeah.
But you could still prepare for university, and if a scholarship came. So I had that knowledge in my back pocket that I was working with Cardinal Sports, and we did
It's
a lot of
huge,
that
yeah.
discussions and brought some kids on. So that was kind of my non-hockey motivation, more kind of, hey Kevin, you're going to have to do this because OHL probably isn't in your future. And I'll never forget some of his good buddies getting drafted to the OHL and playing.
That's when you went to the draft. Like I
Yeah,
went and
I
watched
know.
with some of my friends and watched them get drafted. Like,
Yeah, and he come home with tears in his eyes, and I'll tell you, 2 years later when those OHL kids were done, and he was still playing college, and then went on to play pro after that.
Yeah.
It was like maybe the nickel drop, maybe like it was a tough couple of years or a tough watching my buddies get drafted, and I understand now why I didn't.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. I think it's really important for parents to educate themselves on. You were fortunate to kind of be around hockey and kind of get it. As even being a junior coach, you probably saw a lot of things that other parents don't see, as far as kids getting talked to after games and scouts coming in and talk to you. But I think for parents, it's not hard to get educated on, okay, if my son wants to go to the OHL, what does he need? Well, he needs X, Y, and Z. If my son wants to go to college, what does he need? Well, why not prepare him for both? And then see where he is at 15, 16. And some kids pop and they grow and they're mature and they can go away and play in the O, no problem, and it's all good. But some kids, like I know myself as well, and Kevin's probably similar, but I couldn't play in the O at 16, 17. There's no way. And for me, I decided at a young age to go to college. My parents didn't have any knowledge of what to do. So I went to my guidance counselor, talked about SATs. I made sure I had my correct classes, all that kind of stuff, But if a lot of parents aren't involved, and you're right, grade 11, 12 rolls around, like,
Too late.
I think I want to get a scholarship. Like, man, you took basic math and whatever the thing is now, but like, you need to take university classes. You need to have a language. You need to have these things that fit in the puzzle of the NCAA clearinghouse so you can move. But just preparing, right? Talking to people, asking people that have gone through it, I think is huge, man.
But there's also like this stigma around scholarships. And I think it's going away a bit. But if you live in one of these like big OHL cities, Windsor, Kitchener, London, wherever, it's like OHL's the goal. And then you're like, you know what? He's not going to play there. He'll just get a scholarship. They're not really just giving these away like to anyone who just can't play in the O.
Yeah.
You're not to say you can be 16 and then get drafted and make your choice. There's definitely those kids. But they've been preparing for this for like you said, and you guys like for years, like whether it's academically, physically, mentally, everything. It's not just, you don't just get a scholarship because you can't play in the O.
Right.
It's something people have been, I took years trying to get, and was a pretty big day when I was committed. I'm sure you feel the same way. Like,
100%.
it was a
man,
big deal when I
Yeah.
was like, man, I'm going to get school for 4 years.
Yeah.
And then now I'm battling again just to get ice time. But it was a pretty exciting day. I remember it.
100%.
I remember,
Yeah.
I was old and I was not ready like you at 16. So I was 20
Yeah.
when I went. Like that might seem old to some people. Like my dad said, a lot of my friends that went to the O or played junior, they're done at 20 because they're in their last year. They got one left. I was just starting college, and I had a ton of growing to do, like in my game, and the way I got better until.
But I think that's part of the parents' role too, man, is looking at your kid at 15, 16 and being like, I don't think he's ready to play in the O. Like, I don't think she's ready to go to junior yet. I think she should play midget AA or whatever that is, right? I think it's important and if you're not sure, go ask some people because, if you're not a hockey parent, that's totally fine, but go ask somebody, hey, can you assess my daughter? Or, hey, can you take a look at my son? Like, what do you think? And man, he's 5'2", real good student, 95 average. Man, 2-3 years of development, playing junior would be really huge for him. Don't go to the O. You know what I mean? Even though they want him, he's undersized a little bit, I wouldn't do that. He's not ready to go away yet. Or your kid's maybe a little bit immature, which is totally fine, and likes being at home, still needs mom and dad to pick him up and do everything for them. Don't send him to the O. Don't send him away yet. Like, that's a recipe for disaster.
It's a dream of most kids, right?
Yes, the kids, but also the parents. How cool is it to go to the coffee
that's why
shop?
it's a dream of most kids, because it's a dream of a lot of parents. And they don't understand, if you're not a hockey person, that when they looked at, I'll use Kevin's example, you think they didn't look at me at 5'7" and my wife at 5'2"? No, they do.
For sure, 100%.
That's a business for them.
100%.
So you don't know how many, as a junior coach, how many coaches would come to me and want to know. So what's his? Yeah, he's 5'10" now. He's 16 years old. What's his parents like? Like, that sounds silly, but that's the business side of it. That as a coach, I had the knowledge to bring to both the kids and the parents,
For sure.
right? Which a lot of parents wouldn't have that luxury. They would just know what they know or know what they don't know.
Yeah.
Right. So it was a different environment.
No, I think that's a really good point, man, for sure. And I think it is really, really important to get educated on this stuff. If that's the goal, right? Because I know parents love pounding their chest saying, "Oh, my kid got drafted to the OHL and he's going to play in the O, and that's all we're doing. That's all we're doing." Like, man, there's another avenue out there, and if your kid's really good, maybe the O is not the best spot for them, and maybe it is. Now the way the OHL is, and we talked about this a bunch before, but the way the OHL is and WHL and the Q, you basically get pretty much a full scholarship to play there, which is awesome, But at the same time, if you need another year or two development, then it might, because that's 16. Some of these kids are young. 17. Some of these kids are young, not ready to play there yet.
But you're saying that kid is getting 4 years when he signs with his OHL team. Like, for these parents that aren't educated, if they're offering you 1 year, then be aware that they're offering you 1 year and one exhibition game to prove himself. Well, if he doesn't prove himself in that one exhibition game, they're not even offering school.
Your eligibility's
gone. Like, those are things that are still people are missing. And it's okay if you want to take that chance, totally fine. Just be very aware you are taking that chance.
And those 4 years, or that they get a year of education for every year they play. But you can't go to Europe and play for 2 years after that and come back and cash in your educational ticket.
No, you can't.
You're limited. So there's all kinds. And years ago, the OHL, I shouldn't say they hid things from you, but they weren't as open as they are now.
For sure.
Now they're competing with NCAA schools, and it's very open, and their recruiters and their coaching staff are so well educated now, which they weren't back then. It was like, I'm not going to tell him about losing his eligibility if I want to see him for 3-4 games. Oh, then your eligibility's gone. That's on you.
Yeah.
But that does not happen now. I can tell you that the OHL teams are much more open to giving parents and kids full options.
Well, what they do now is almost every camp that you go to in the O, let's say at the camp, after that 48 hours, which is kind of the 48-hour rule for NCAA, they'll have meetings with the kids right after that. So if you want to go NCAA, I don't think you're going to make our team, you go. And then, hey, we love you. We'd like you to play an exhibition game. Then that's a different conversation, right? But they are way more respectful. Whereas before it was a constant battle.
Yeah.
Now they're more respectful with the process, which is I think huge for sure. But it's still one of those things that you get offered that exhibition game as a young kid that lives in London, and you get the chance to play for the London Knights in an exhibition game. Like, it's hard to be, no, I don't want to do it. And again, I think that's where parents got to step in and be like, no, we're not doing this, man.
And your originally question was kind of when did, like, I as a hockey dad step in, and it was that year down when he was living in Leamington. And he paid his dues in and out of the lineup, fourth line center, but that's okay. You're young, your first year, you're a rookie, pay your dues. And at the time, I'm coaching the junior B team in Kitchener, which is affiliated with the Kitchener Rangers, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm kind of used to that affiliation, players coming up and down and what have you. Well, it became obvious to me that, and coaches, they don't necessarily promise you things on purpose to entice you, but Kevin, just give us this first year. Things are going to be better for you next year. You're going to move up in the lineup, bang, bang, bang. Well, they had at least two, possibly three returning centermen. Windsor had drafted a bunch of centermen early, so now it's like, what do I do as a parent?
Because they were affiliated with Windsor. That's right.
They were affiliated with Windsor, and because I know how that works with my
they're going to place the guy in there, right? Yeah.
I got kids play, and they don't. Pete DeBoer didn't call and say, "Hey, Ken, can you help me out?" He said, "Ken, I'm sending you a kid, and I want him on the right wing, or I'm sending you a goalie, and I need him to be your starter." That's the way the affiliations worked back then. Well, Leamington and Windsor would have been the same thing, so it became a really tough. Didn't want to coach Kevin. Didn't want him. But my general manager wanted him. He had come down for a couple skates over the years at Christmas and holidays and that. And they said, "Man, we got to make a deal for this kid." I said, "No, you don't. He's fine where he is, right?"
Yeah.
But they made a deal without telling me.
They got him over,
They actually made a deal with Leamington, but they knew the situation. I was concerned. I said, I don't know where he's going to end up in the lineup down there, with Windsor, and they're heavy up the middle. So they called me in to a meeting in the summer and said, "We just bought the rights for Kevin," and I was like, "Geez, I don't know how I feel about that."
Yeah.
At the time.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and I think that's another thing too for players and parents. Do a little bit of research on the teams you're trying out for, right? Even college. Like, I remember sending letters to college teams, and I'm looking. They've got a bunch of or hardly any seniors leaving. So I'm like, well, there's hardly any spots there. Or they got 10 seniors leaving. Oh man, they've got a recruiting class coming up in 2 years. That's when I'm going. You know, or they got a bunch of sophomores, and I'm going to be there in 3 years
100%.
potentially, right? So, but I think it's important to kind of know what you're getting into and kind of doing your research on what, even if it's a junior team or whatever that is, what are they losing next year? What are they? I know that could change, but at least you have an idea of how many guys are graduating, how many guys are moving on, and then you can kind of pick and choose your spots from there.
How about interviewing a coach?
Yeah.
When was the last time you told a parent, like, I got some opportunities, why don't you talk to the coach? Don't, like, I'm a big believer in that. I don't think I had any player and parent come and actually interview me, and I could never understand that. You should know what I'm about.
Yeah. Yeah, if you're going to send
You
your
have
kid
the right
there,
to do that as
for
a parent
sure.
and a player, I believe.
Yeah. And I mean, you don't have to call it an interview. You can call it
I
like,
want to get to know you. What's your coaching philosophy?
But I say this all the time, especially when you talk about like advisors or Cardinal or like different things like that that are out there. I think they're great. And I think they help. Like a lot of parents are like, well, I don't want to spend $1,000 or $1,500 on these guys helping promote my kid. I'm like, well, then if you want to pick up the phone and call all these GMs and make all these relationships, go ahead. But you'll be $3,000 in your time just on making these calls and trying to make these relationships. But at the same time, I'm like, go vet some of these people, go meet them, go talk to them, see what they're about. You'll leave a meeting with a coach within 10, 15 minutes feeling like, I like this guy, he's honest, or this guy, I don't know about this guy.
Coaches
man, you know?
love to talk about their program.
For sure.
They love to talk about their programs.
Definitely. No, I think that's really good advice for sure. And then kind of to wrap, I don't want to take all your time up today, but I guess the big thing, like once your son kind of gets to that college, you know, because going from junior, then Kev gets a scholarship, ends up playing college hockey. Is that the moment for a parent, I guess, where you're like, okay, like can you kind of breathe a little bit easier, or is that the next thing of, all right, hopefully he gets a chance to play pro, or is it just enjoy the ride? The ride was good. Now I'm kind of
I think it was more enjoy the ride. We didn't know what was going to happen after college.
Yeah.
He's a grown man now, you know, and hopefully Mom and I have done the job that he can make the right decisions going forward. We're always there to step in if we think something's really off track. But no, it was to Kevin's point about him having to prove himself along the way.
Yeah.
I knew he had to do that. I knew he was willing to do that, and I knew he did that. So once he went away to school and met some good people and had good experience there, it was kind of like, ooh, okay, what happens now? You got an education, right?
Yeah.
Hopefully you won't end up working back at TPH and hockey.
Yeah, you kind of missed the boat on that one there. Yeah.
Hey, everything doesn't work out perfect all the time.
Yeah. No, because I feel like that too, you know, kind of, and whether it's hockey, it doesn't matter what it is, but for me, I think getting my kids to that 20, 25 years, I'm like, okay, then at least I know if they're on a path that's decent, whether it's job, whatever, you know, and I think that's kind of, not that you and Karen don't stress about your kids even now, you know, just being parents and grandparents and stuff, but it's one of those things where you kind of get them to that age where hopefully they can be independent, and then you can kind of ease off the gas a little bit and just hopefully just
never stop parenting though.
Yeah,
as
for sure.
As an old man with like 4 grown children, I can tell you absolutely never stop parenting. Which is okay. That's the deal, man. Sorry, bud. Sorry for your luck.
It's not what I wanted to hear today, Ken.
You can edit that out.
Yeah, we're going to have to stop it right now. I was hoping to shut her down at like when they turn 20, 25, move down to Mexico or something and just hit the beach for the rest of my go around.
Selling margaritas and umbrellas.
Yeah, definitely. Well, listen, man, I really appreciate you coming on today, Kenny. This was awesome. And maybe round 2 of this, I might have to bring Carrie and you on, just so Carrie can rip on you for the good solid hour.
Might get a totally different perspective on it. I'm not sure.
Yeah. But I guess the big takeaway from this is that as dads, we're kind of always learning, right? This is maybe a little bit of a learning process throughout the whole life cycle. Yeah.
Hide your crazy.
Hide your crazy. Hide your crazy. That's right. Well, thanks a lot, Kevy. Thanks for bringing your dad in, and thanks a lot, Kenny. Appreciate it, buddy.
Thanks for having me.
All right. To kind of raise that bar.
That extra gear, the first 3 steps,
Huge strides in the performance.
that I might not be the player I am today.